Hi everyone, and welcome to the Be Brave Project podcast. This is the very first episode. It has been a really hard time for me to record this. I have sat here, I think probably for about 6 hours in total, not all in one go, and started to record this first episode. And it's been really, really hard to record. And I think the reason being is because it's my story and it's scary telling my story. It's always quite a nerve-wracking thing to do. And it's the first time I'm going to be really, really open, really raw. I will be mentioning child sexual abuse, rape, trauma, PTSD, grooming, all of those words. So if any of those trigger you, please take care whilst listening. You don't have to listen or come back when you feel ready. So what is the Be Brave project? So I started this several months ago. I've been wanting to do it for a really, really long time. It's a space for honesty, courage and connection. A place where survivors and allies can come together. They can share their stories and know that they're not alone, which is so important for victims and survivors of child sexual abuse or any kind of child abuse. And today I'm going to be sharing mine. So my name is Chloe, and this podcast was born out of my own journey, a journey that has been messy, painful, confusing, and at times completely overwhelming. But it's also been a journey of resilience, growth, and learning how to turn pain into purpose. So let's begin. So my story begins when I was 9 years old, and that's when my abuse started. And it ended just shy of my 13th birthday. The man who abused me was a driver who took me to and from school. He groomed me and then he sexually abused me. For 17 years, I didn't speak out about what happened to me, not in any real open way. So I told a few people in that time. The first person I think I ever told was my sister. Then I told a friend, and then my mum, but only because she found out. But it was never really a conversation that I wanted to have or initiated, I suppose. I buried it so deeply, I convinced myself that hiding it was the best way to deal with it. Obviously, we now know that it's not the right thing to do. So I want to talk more about the grooming side because it didn't start straight away with the sexual abuse. And I think that's really important to note that in most cases, and not all of them, obviously, but in most child sexual abuse cases, it does start with grooming. And it starts with gaining the trust of that child. And most of these perpetrators, all of these perpetrators, are incredibly clever, incredibly manipulative. I don't want to give them clever because they're not clever, but they're manipulative and calculated. That's the better word. And they're really, really good at making you feel special, chosen, protected, when really, we don't know this at the time, but we now know that we're really being targeted. It all started when I was 9, and the reason being is because I was moved to a different school. I was very, very dyslexic, very neurodiverse. We didn't know this at the time. I was around about 7, 8 when I started struggling in school, and my parents were noticing, the teachers were obviously noticing. So the school that I was at, the headmistress told my parents that there's a really, really great school that helps children like me that have really bad dyslexia and neurodiverse needs. Neurodiverse was not one of the words that we're using, but we now know that that's what it was. So I moved to a school, and it was quite far away from where we lived. I had 2 younger sisters the time. So it was quite difficult for my mum to pick two of my sisters up in a completely different direction. So every now and again, this was when it started off very slowly, every now and again, this driver would come and pick me up from school and take me home. He would either take me home or he would take me over to my nan's. And that's kind of how it started. It started very slowly. He would tell me jokes. The jokes then got dirtier and sexier and ruder. I remember liking it. I thought it was cool. I thought, oh my God, I'm a little 9-year-old. This is cool. Someone telling me jokes that I know that I'm not allowed to know. And I was obviously aware of swear words and things like that. Wasn't aware of sexual innuendos and things like that, though. So that's how it started. Then it gradually got worse and worse. And I remember a real distinct time where he would discuss his sex life with me. And he would mention his then partner and what he used to do with her and what she used to do with him. And I remember hearing it and I would be thinking, ugh, that's gross. I don't want to know that. I don't want to. No 9-year-old should be thinking and hearing about people having sex. And I do remember thinking it was a bit gross. And then I wasn't at this school very long. I was there for about 18 months. And this was a real gradual thing, this grooming. It's not over like a week. It was a real gradual thing over a year. And it would get more and more and more. And then I remember him saying to me, oh, you can come and sit in the front. Again, as a 9-10-year-old, that is exciting. I had 2 younger sisters that we were always fighting over about who's going to sit in the front or who's going to sit in the middle. The biggest deal in the world. And it was a big thing. Oh, I can sit in the front? This is amazing. Okay, great. So I sat in the front. Then it would be, oh, come on, lean over and just give me a little kiss. Give me a little kiss. I'd be thinking, I don't want to give you a kiss, gross old man. But he would do it in a way, it would make it fun and silly. And so I did. So I then started giving him little kisses on the cheek. Then I remember him asking me to whisper in his ear. Thought that was a bit weird, but I did it. And all these things I was doing because it started so gradually. It wasn't a quick thing. And then I moved school again, and I moved school in a in a completely different direction. So this was even further away. And at this point, my 2 sisters I was over here, they were over here, completely different direction. And my mum would take them both to school. So at this point, he was now taking me to school in the morning and then taking me back home in the afternoon. And from then, it started getting worse and worse and worse. And this is when I remember a very distinct moment when he was driving me back home. And also another thing, the abuse never happened in the morning. He was always really grumpy with me in the morning. He was always really moody. He wouldn't talk to me. I remember crying a lot in the back of the car because I'd be thinking, well, what have I done wrong? Does he not like me anymore? Does he not love me? Have I done something wrong? So I would cry. And I also do remember not wanting to get in the car in the first instance as well. In the morning, and I do remember crying quite a bit. Anyway, poor Chloe. And then on the way home, that's when the abuse would really start to kick in. And I remember this one distinct time. He got out. I got in the car and I got in the front. And before he pulled off away from school, he got out something out of his boot. And he said to me, oh, one of my clients, because he was a taxi driver, one of my clients left his camcorder. Obviously now I'm thinking, obviously he didn't. So I got it out and he said, oh, you should watch this video. It's really funny. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, yeah, why not? You get told to watch a video, you're going to watch video, aren't you? And it's one of these really old 90s camcorders. Bulky thing. It was huge. And I remember holding it. I had to slide my hand in. One of the strap would go around. And then it had this, I don't know what it is even called. It sort of, you lift it up and then you put your eye over it like that. Actually, I'd be blinking that one and I'd go that way. And you'd look through. Not like this anymore. Well, not anymore. We didn't have these at the time. And I looked through and it was a tiny little picture like this, black and white. tiny little picture, but I could make out what was going on. And what was going on was he was showing me porn. And I was thinking, I don't want to be watching this. Like, what the hell? But I carried on watching it. And then I realised and I clocked that the person that I'm watching is him. He's having sex with his then girlfriend. And I remember feeling really awkward and uncomfortable and not really wanting to watch it. But I carried on. Whether he told me to, I can't remember, but I did carry on. And then this is the very first time where I remember the physical sexual stuff started. So he then put his hand on my leg. And that's kind of how it grew from there. He would also buy me chocolate bars after school. So he would give me money and he would stop off at this newsagent's by this station that we had to cross over, and I'd get out and he would give me some money and I'd go in. And again, as a little 9-year-old, or actually at this point I was probably about 10 and a bit, it's exciting. Someone gives you money, you're going to go and get some chocolate after school. I wasn't allowed chocolate after school, hardly ever. So it's really exciting. So I go in, I remember my favourite chocolate bar, and I till this day, cannot eat them. It's a Galaxy Ripple. And I'd get in the car and I'd get in the front seat, again, exciting. In the front seat, a chocolate bar. Sometimes he would buy me a Dr. Pepper or a Diet Coke. Again, things that I wasn't allowed. And he would always say, don't tell your mum and dad, don't tell your mum and dad. Otherwise, if you tell them, they'll get cross with me, but also they won't allow you to have it anymore and you can't do it. So just don't tell your mum and dad. So I obviously didn't tell my mum and dad because I wanted the chocolate and I wanted the fizzy drinks. And he would say, this is our little secret. This is just for us. And he would make it fun and adventurous. And like we had this little secret bond. We had this little relationship, And the camcorder came in, the videos, he showed me the porn. And again, it was very much, don't tell anyone. This is just for adults. I'm not really allowed to show you this, so don't tell anyone. It's our little secret, okay? And the sexual jokes and the comments and just the testing of boundaries and it would be the nudging just that little bit further, just to see if he can go further that day, each time. And of course, each time he could go further because I allowed him to, because I trusted him and I liked him and I thought he liked me. And I suppose, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous now, but I think about the trust that I had for him. I trusted him with everything in me. But I was, I was a baby. I was just a child, and he knew exactly what he was doing. Of course he did. Of course he knew exactly what he was doing. And that is how grooming works. It starts small, innocent, like the little jokes and the chocolate bars and the secrets that he would tell me, and every time you keep one secret, he knows that you'll keep an even bigger one. And yeah, it starts with chocolate and it ends with rape. And all the way through, the message is still the same. Don't tell anyone. Yeah. So after the grooming, it was the sexual abuse started. So I mentioned the hand on the leg. That grew obviously more. I remember him telling me to take off my tights. I would wear these brown tights. I would take them off. And yeah, it started with hand on the leg. And it moved to my private area. Gentle at first, not as much. And it, over time, kind of like the grooming, he tested his boundaries, what he could do, what he could do to me. And over time, it got more and more and more because he took it very slow and he was very clever with it. He knew that if he went straight into the physical act, I would have said no, I think. I don't know, but I think I would have. Because it started so gradually, so small, and like I said, so gently, it built over time. And it would always happen in the car, and he would always be driving. I would sometimes sit in the front of the car, he would do it, or I would be in the back, but kind of leaning forward. And as he grew more confident with it, I think I grew more confident with it. You know, that's the thing. It's like anything, isn't it? It's, you think of a young teenage boy and a young teenage girl. You don't straight away go into sex. You go to first base, second base. It's a gradual, slow thing. Some people probably do, but I don't think many people do, because you want to test your boundaries and see what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And it's an experimental thing, isn't it? So you've got a young child, even though I was very young and I was probably around 11 at this point, and no 11-year-old should be experiencing this, but I'm reacting to my body, and my body, even this is going to sound disgusting and it makes my skin crawl, I want more, because that's the natural way that you eventually take it. So he knew that, and he was testing those boundaries, and it was getting more and more and more. And then I would do things to him. That was more towards the end of the abuse. And then I remember this one very distinct time where he pulled over. He was driving me at this point. He was driving me to my dance class. I'd always get changed in the car, and he would watch me. And on the way to dancing, there was a car park, and it was a very secluded car park, and it was wooded. It's not there anymore, thank God. And he would park up, and there was no one around. No one. And I remember it being very dark, so it probably would have been winter time. Very, very dark. And he pushed it that one bit further, too far. He pushed it too far. And I went along with it, but I remember thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. And the first time I actually felt scared of him, and I hadn't felt scared of him this whole time, and I thought, no, this is not, if I continue with this is going to get even worse, and I don't want to continue this. I don't recall me saying no, but I recall me not wanting to and feeling very uncomfortable. And I think he could obviously read that and sense that, and I think he thought, oh shit, if I continue, she's gonna go and tell. So he retracted. And then it kind of went back to the gentle sort of stuff. And then it built up again, and it built up again. And it got to the point where it was, but that's when he stopped driving me to school, because it was then the summer holidays and I was 12. And then in that September 2001, my two sisters were able to get a coach to school. So my mum was now able to take me to and from school. And I was then 13 in that November 2001. And he never took me to school ever again. And that was that. And he just disappeared out of my life. And because he wasn't there and it wasn't happening, I kind of just I didn't forget about it, but I just put it into the back of my mind. I'll be fine now because I'm safe. He's not with me anymore. He's not going to be able to do what he did. And I do remember mourning it in a way. I do remember wanting him to take me to and from school, but I also remember thinking, I'm glad, it was a relief. I don't have to do this anymore. And at the time, I didn't understand those feelings. I was so young. I was 12, 13. I didn't understand why I felt the way that I felt. So I did hide it. Spoiler alert. Hiding it didn't help anyone, especially me. And yeah. So I then just carried on with my school life and struggled a lot. And I think then everything that had happened, it was starting to coming out in different ways. I was very shy. I was very quiet. I was reserved. I lost a lot of self-esteem. I was worried that people didn't like me, if I'd hurt their feelings. I struggled with relationships in general, mostly with men, but at this point I was still at school and I was at an all-girls school, so I didn't really have relationships with any boys, really. But in relationships in general, I really struggled with girls. I remember trying to open up to a few of my school girlfriends. I didn't tell them about what happened, but I remember telling them, and it was just what you can picture, like, sort of 14-year-old girls at a sleepover talking about boys and sex and all of that sort of stuff. And at that point, none of us had, apart from me, but they didn't realise this at the time, and I was pretending that I was Virgin Mary, but I wasn't. But I was pretending, but then they were all talking about it, and I said, oh no, I've done it. I've done that. And they were, no, you haven't. I said, no, I have done it all. And I remember going into quite a lot of detail, but I was making it out like it was a boy and not him. And they didn't believe me. And I think that was, why would they believe me? I don't blame them, but I think that was a point in my life where I thought, well, I'm not going to tell anyone then because they don't believe me. And I think that was my way of trying to tell people. But 14-year-old girls, they didn't know. It's not their fault. But that was me trying to tell them that it happened to me. And they didn't believe me. So I thought, well, they don't believe me. No one's going to believe me. So I'm just going to keep it quiet. So I did. And first person I told was my sister. I think I was 15. She didn't take it very well, obviously. I think even now, looking back, why I thought it was the right thing to tell a 13-year-old girl what had happened to me and then go, but don't tell anyone. Shush, don't say anything to anyone because I don't want anyone to know. How cruel is that? But, I was a child myself and I just wanted to get it out. And then I told another friend when I was about 18, we were getting ready to go for a night out. And I told her, can't remember her response actually, but it was very, very casual. Oh, some guy used to touch me and make me touch him. Oh, okay, cool. Well, have you not told the police? No, I don't want to. Oh, okay, then let's go out and party. Okay. Absolutely sloshed and probably slept with about 4 people that night. Yeah, that was the start of the absolute chaos. That was then my early 20s. And when I say absolute chaos, I really mean it. I was an absolute mess, but I was holding it together. I thought I was anyway. I think I did act pretty well. I don't think anyone clocked on that I was an absolute mess. I was just dealing with it in my own messed up kind of way. And yeah, my early 20s, they weren't great. They were good. Sometimes I look back and I think, oh, I've loved my 20s. I was great. I was out all the time. I was drinking far too much. I was having an absolute whale of a time. But when I look back on it really, and I think about it really, 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 was I having a good time? No, I really wasn't. I was battling so many demons, but I didn't think I was. I was hiding it from myself, let alone other people. I became very, very good at masking. And like I said, I was out, I was drinking way too much. I became quite promiscuous. I had absolutely no respect for myself. I had absolutely zero respect for anyone else, especially men. I hated them with a passion. And the only way that I knew that I could get back at them, and I know I was generalizing, I do know that. But, when you're going through what you're going through and you're a 20, 21-year-old young girl, and let's face it, we're young at that age, we don't know. I thought, well, if I treat him like shit, then I'm kind of getting him back. And that's exactly what I did. I treated men like shit. I slept with God knows how many people. I don't even want to think about it. think I did become a bit of a sex addict, which I've only in the last year have actually been able to admit to myself, because it does make me feel disgusting, shameful, dirty. But I also now know that was a coping mechanism. And I didn't sleep with these people because I loved it. I absolutely hated it. I hated the physical act of sex. It wasn't, I suppose it softened the darkness that I was carrying around for that however many minutes. And that's all I wanted, really. I just wanted a moment where I could feel like I wasn't rotting inside. And now professionally, I was an actor for a very, very long time. And honestly, I loved it. Acting gave me an escape. I could become someone completely different, someone that wasn't carrying the trauma. These characters I would become weren't me. I used to really embody them, and I was pretty good at it as well. And I think because I'd been acting like I was okay and I was masking, I think, I was pretty good at it, as I do say so myself. But as I moved into my late 20s, everything started to unravel and get a lot worse. My relationships were falling apart. People didn't know how to deal with me. I had a lot of built up anger and resentment, especially towards men. Like I've mentioned, I did hate them. I used them in the same way that I had been used. I tried to control every situation that I was in because I'd obviously lacked that control when I was a child. And then in my sort of mid-20s, late 20s, I then met someone that I genuinely thought was going to be my person. He wasn't. I always sort of think of us as like a cocktail mix on a night out. It's really fun at the time, and you think, oh, these are great, having all these, knocking back all these different cocktails, and then the next morning, poof, oh my God, the hangover is atrocious. The anxiety is horrendous. The regret, the wanting to literally disappear from the world is a real thing, and that is what this relationship is like. But we did have a child together, a very beautiful child called Beatrix B. She's a huge part of why I do what I do, and she's a huge inspiration behind the name of the podcast. And honestly, she is genuinely the reason that I am still here. I say it to her quite a lot. You saved me. And she genuinely did. She did save my life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. Then moving on to 2017, it was my breaking point. That's where I feel like that's my point in my life where I thought, I cannot continue. I can't go on any further. I cannot do this. My anxiety was out of control. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't like who I was anymore. The flashbacks were relentless. I felt like I was living it all over again. I was like living in this kind of movie. My moods were everywhere and all over the place. I hated everyone. I was irritated the whole time. Just wasn't a very nice person to be around. So I went to the doctor, hoping to get some sort of help. But I actually left feeling 100 times worse. Wasn't great. And I wanted something, anything. I needed something that could take it all away for me. That was happening in my head. I needed something to silence it. So I got home and my mum actually, bless her, she'd probably done it. I can remember she used to do she loves a bit of research, my mum. Loves a bit of Googling. And she got on and she said, call the NSPCC. And I remember saying, it's for kids. I'm not a kid. She said, no, it's here. Look. And I remember her showing me on the computer. It's here. Call the NSPCC. And it's the helpline, which is for adults. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And it was like this spur of the moment adrenaline thing. I picked up the phone, I called, and I spoke to a man for about an hour, and he listened. He believed me, and that was huge. Him believing me, and it was really only time where I'd sat down and I'd told my whole story in detail and in full, even though I had told a few people over the years, but not really told them, you know. I went through absolutely everything with him. It was the first time I ever did it, and he believed me, and he told me, you need to go to the police. And I do remember saying, I don't want to. And it hadn't been the first time that someone said to me, go to the police. I'd been told it many times. And, but the way he explained it to me, the way he told me what it was going to happen, he made me feel safe. I did. I put the phone down and I called the police. And within an hour, I had 2 officers around at my parents' house taking my statement. And it was kind of a spiral from there, really. And then what followed was 3 years of absolute hell. Absolute hell. I'm not going to sugarcoat it because it was fucking hideous. The doubt, the feeling that I wasn't being believed, the guilt that I was carrying around, and then it going to court and thinking, shit, I've actually now got to stand up in front of a whole courtroom of absolute strangers. Fuck. What am I doing? Can I do this? What? But I did. And on December the 2nd, 2019, I will never forget. It always is really hard around this time of years. The anniversary of it was the first day that it started, and the trial went on for about 2 weeks. And it genuinely was the second worst experience of my whole life. It was humiliating, degrading, demoralizing, vile. Yeah, I don't know other words probably for it, but after 2 weeks, I had a call from the detective that was on my case, and he had been given a guilty verdict. That feeling was weird. I remember sinking to the floor. You know when you see in movies where people just slunk to the floor and you think, oh, it's so dramatic. But genuinely, that's what I did. I fell to the floor. My knees buckled. I didn't have any control over my body. I sunk to the floor. It was a strange feeling. The first feeling I felt was guilt. I felt a lot of guilt. I shouldn't have done this. And he got 9 years. I don't want to say that I'm lucky, because I'm not lucky, but I'm lucky in the sense that doesn't happen for everyone. 1, it doesn't always get to court. 2, they don't get a guilty verdict, not some of the time. And 3, 9 years, it's not long enough, but it's pretty long in terms of what had happened. So he's still in prison right now. He has just done 6 years. This December marks 6 years since he went away. He was up for parole this year. He wasn't granted it. That was a whole new trauma in itself, going through that. It was hideous, and I was treated pretty poorly. I'm not going to lie. It was bad. How they treated me with that was terrible. But he's still in prison. Yeah, that is kind of my story in a nutshell. Since then, I have been working on myself. I've done a lot of therapy. It's been hard. The last 6 years has been a real challenge. I've had my daughter. She's now 8. I've been a single mum. During all of that time, I had a lot of physical illnesses, a lot of mental illnesses that have all stemmed from all of this that I've had to deal with, that have affected how I work and how much I can work. My career as an actor came to an end because of the investigation and the trial. I couldn't do it, which then jeopardized how I then got back into it. So it's not just one moment of time. It is everything. It affects everything. It affects everything now. It will always continue to affect me. It's never not there. It's never not part of who I am. Yeah, there are days that are good and there are days that are pretty horrendous, and I really have to swallow it and soldier on, mostly because of my daughter, but also because of me, because I can't just crawl up into a ball and stay there. I can't. What is that going to do? It's not going to do anything. But trust me, there are days where I do that. I sit on that sofa and I go, I cannot be bothered to do anything. I don't want to do anything. And that's all okay. And that's fine. And it's taken me a long time to also accept that it's okay to feel shit. And I'm not weak for having bad days. You are going to have bad days, and that is okay. But yeah, the last 6 years have been tough. I've had a lot of therapy. My therapist that I now have is amazing. I see her every 2 weeks. Sometimes if I'm struggling, every week. Not afraid to say it. Not ashamed to admit that I have therapy. It is the best thing for me. I'm trying something else at the moment as well. I'm trying EMDR to see if that helps with my flashbacks and my triggers and my intrusive thoughts that I'm having. I sort of say, it doesn't ever end. At the moment, I'm really struggling with my daughter. She's 8, very close to the age that I was when it all began. And even though I was 9 when it started, I was very tiny. I was much smaller than a normal 9-year-old. I was more like a 7, 8-year-old. I was tiny. So when I see her, and I look at her in her school uniform and her little body, I just see me. I see little Chloe, and I'm really struggling with it. It's really triggering. I am having a lot of flashbacks. I'm having a lot of flashbacks, but instead of me, it's her in the picture, which is obviously horrific. I'm becoming very untrustful again of men around her. Don't trust any of them. I don't want anyone to touch her, to be around her. I need to know where she is at every minute of every single day. Like right this minute, she's out with her dad, and all day I have been thinking, is she okay? Should I text him? Should I call him? I'm trying not to, but it's another thing. It's like a battle with myself all the time. I'm battling, and it is so draining. So after this episode today, and I had a call earlier, I'm now having a break for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to give myself some rest. And then I'm going to come back to it. Even though this journey of this podcast has been really hard, and it has, I'm not going to lie about it, it has, but it's been incredibly healing. And through all of this, I've learnt resilience, strength, vulnerability, confidence, empathy, patience, and, love, I think. And what happened to me does define me. I can't say that it doesn't, because it does. It's everything of who I am. But I've also learnt how to turn that into something positive, to spark change, to help others, to be a voice for those who can't speak yet, and to be able to give a platform to those who are ready to share their story is really amazing. And to grow a community where survivors know that they're not alone. And I think that is really important with all the episodes that you're going to hear during this 10-part series. You will know, and you will come to know, that every survivor's story is incredibly different, but the parallels of how we have dealt with things after, how we see ourselves, the shame, the guilt, the feelings that we feel are so similar, if not exactly the same. And having those conversations with other survivors has honestly been so empowering, life-changing, really. I feel so less alone. And I really want this podcast to be that for people that are listening, to know that you're not alone, that what you're feeling is normal, that you're not weird, you're not strange, you're not bad for feeling the way that you're feeling. It's so normal. And you're not alone, and you can speak up. You can be brave, and people will believe you. I will. I'll believe you. And that's what the Be Brave project is all about. It's about honesty and courage and connection. It's about saying your story matters. You matter. I hope you enjoy the episodes we have coming up. I really do. They are powerful, they're brave, they're honest. And, if you are a survivor or an ally, these stories are going to move you in so many ways. So please stick around, show your support for all the survivors that have chosen to share their stories with you. They are hard-hitting, I'm not going to lie. And at times, they're going to be hard to hear and watch, but so incredibly vital and so incredibly important. Please remember, these episodes will mention child sexual abuse, grooming, and other triggering topics. Listen with caution and please be kind to yourself. Self-care is so needed. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And most importantly, thank you for being brave. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Be Brave Project. If anything we spoke about today has affected you, please remember this. You are not alone, and you deserve support. There are people and organisations ready to listen, to believe you, and to help you through whatever you're facing. Support is available, and you'll find the helpline numbers just below. Please take care of yourself, be gentle with your heart, and remember, being brave doesn't mean being unafraid. It means choosing to keep going. And I'm so proud of you being here. Until next time.